What's up, everyone? This is Ryan here with Josh. We're at Danger's Edge, and today we're doing our Halloween special. We're going to be making a tier list of, drumroll, apocalypses. Yes, so we had the idea of thinking of as many different scenarios of apocalypsing, is that the phrase, that we could think of, and we're going to rank them on how we think we could survive them and kind of just go through our survival tactics. So we're going to start right now. Number one is going to be alien invasion. What do you think, Josh?
Alien invasion, it really depends on, what the aliens' main goal, right? I think that they're going to come in and they're not going to necessarily, I think that we're going to shoot at them first, clear as day, I don't know, it's now been confirmed there are aliens in the world,
Wow.
So I think
it's a real threat.
Alien invasions is actually, I think, survivability high on the list because, it's from what the government's telling us is that they're already here. They're already aware about us. They might not be what we know and think of aliens and stuff as far as like they might be interdimensional or whatnot, but aliens nonetheless. Survivability high on the list, but if we're talking about like War of the Worlds when they're coming in,
this is like the apocalypse. I guess like they're coming here to end humans. So like,
it's over. It's over.
I guess the questions are how likely do you think you can survive, and how long, and what would you do to try and survive? For me, I think that I would put alien invasion like S tier is like there's no chance for us to live. D tier is like we could probably survive this event. I would put aliens probably like an A tier because
I agree with that because it's like right in the middle.
We do have a fighting chance, There's a fighting chance, but they did use technology we don't have to get here. So
yeah,
I think that they have the upper hand, but I think that we have enough to keep us alive, if not fight back.
Agreed.
Yeah,
totally. Because it all depends on the aliens. What's their motive is a huge one, right? If their motive is to knock us out, we're done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But if it's just just to observe us or be around, then
my life is good.
We're fine.
Really good.
That, a big survivability aspect of that would be like staying out of main areas. Like majority of these will be is like. Getting away from that big town, or there's space that you live near,
Yeah, that's like number one rule of apocalypse: get away from other people. Especially for this list, which has a lot of, population-based ones. So, Are you happy with that ranking?
Absolutely.
I agree.
It might move. It might take a space, but we'll see.
We can readjust at the end if we feel like there's an imbalance. So, all right, we'll move on to the next one, which is a heat wave. So, what do you think about a heat wave? And we're talking like scorched earth, like increasing temperatures daily. Like, how long do you think you could survive? What would you do? And how likely or strong of an extinction do you think this would be?
I think if you don't have a bunker, you're done. It's over. I think that if it's scorched earth like that, it's over. It's as a major shift in the poles or whatever would happen to do that, and you're talking about not being able to grow anything unless you have the infrastructure already. So if you're not in a bunker that has those things, like kind of like the show Silo, if you've ever seen it, but if you don't have that already set up, you're screwed. Yeah, it's a no-go.
Have you seen the movie Riddick?
Yes. Yeah.
Remember that planet where the sun like scorches it in a cycle? Yeah. Like imagine that. Like I think like that's like the only way that a scorched earth would be habitable.
Yeah.
Because if it is like this picture where the earth is on fire, like that's an S tier obviously, but if we're giving ourselves a little bit of grace, I think that it would almost be like a cyclical heat or just hot enough where you could survive if you like were tactical about it. So that one definitely varies.
Make it every day.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of like, especially nowadays, I think that there are options to survive this in like, imagine if you had some kind of solar panel that absorbed heat and then you used it for like AC in a bunker, like you could live a long time if you could like figure out And I think another thing to think about is for all these apocalypses, I think it's fair to give us like maybe a week's notice before it happens, so you have time to prep. It's not just like boom, aliens. Like we'd see the ship coming, we'd see like the heat temperatures rising, so you have like there's a little bit of time to plan out your tactics. For me, I feel like the heat wave is more likely to be survived than aliens. What do you think about that? Like a B tier?
Yeah, I agree because it's also like you said. Like I don't think that the temperatures would rise. We obviously are in global warming right now, but people don't realize that global warming is global just shift in temperatures around. It's going to be crazier weather. We're not. We were still. Everybody says global warming, but it's really just global changing of weather. So.
Yeah.
But that specifically being hot as shit. Sorry for my language, but it's definitely harder because you're not going to be able to grow anything. There's limited crops that can withstand that.
Yeah, but there probably is a few, and like anything that's rooted, people grow plants in their closets, and I'm sure that they could make it work in a bunker. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried. I would know the species we would survive as a species for a few more years, if not longer. Yeah. If the Earth was like scorched hot, where like you go outside, and if like you don't get indoors, you're like melted in like an hour.
Yeah.
We build like tunnels underground and stuff. There's ways to survive. So I think it is like a B tier apocalypse. Not the most threatening. All right, moving on. This one is the Purge. So this one is what was it you called it? You called it martial law.
Martial law, yeah.
So pretty much like declared. Essentially for this one, I like to think that the concept is that like all authority has been abolished on the planet and everyone is out for themselves, and it just creates this like rat race of like resources and power and So how long do you think society could survive like this?
I think society would instantly crumble. Major cities would be like really screwed in that case because people will start looting almost instantly. If everything's basically declared free, it's over. You see it in Purge. I know it's only a single day, but then it's there's also that Purge Forever movie and stuff like that where it just shows and I think it's true that like people don't have consequences. I think that they will be more willing to commit those atrocities. It's just clear as day. It happens like that, and it goes to again though. It's like, do you have the resources to not need to go to the city? Is the big one, and but I think if we did like have time to prepare, if it was specifically like the Purge, like with the day stuff, like if you could barricade your house better, I think you'd be better off. I would feel comfortable in that sort of situation if I had some time to barricade my windows, because I do have a fence, whether it be a very small fence, but it's also going to deter somebody. Like you got to jump over that fence,
Mm-hmm.
You have to get over that fence in order to get what I have, and I think that would be more survivable for sure, because you can set yourself up for success in that kind of manner.
This is an interesting
I feel like even in the cities, if you had time to barricade and really prepare for something like that, they're like, hey, in 3 weeks martial law will be declared. It's like, well then, let me get what I need.
You're gonna go straight to Home Depot.
Exactly, right?
Last time you pay for stuff, right there. You use all your money.
Yeah.
Now this one's interesting to me because from the perspective of like me personally surviving it, I feel like it's a stronger chance than aliens or a heat wave. But as a species, I feel like we would crumble quicker than the heat wave, because we are losing teamwork. We're an ant without the ant colony, So that means no one's taking care of pregnant people who have babies, there's no health care anymore. Resources, like you gotta grow all your own food. It's just like everyone's out for themselves. No one's working together to like make, sustainable society like we have now. So we don't have to spend 8 hours a day looking for food or hiding. And yeah, there's crazy people out there. So it's hard to say if you would survive, because someone out there who wants what you have will just ram a car through your fence and 5 guys hop out with like, tasers. It's like, it's definitely one where you want to either be aggressive or hide. It's like fight or flight kind of situation for sure. So I think this is also like a B tier. Like I could really see this kind of thing destroying the planet, and then if aliens came here, we'd look like feral, like raccoons, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
like
as for extinction, I think it would go here. I think it could be like the death of us if we lose our ability to cooperate, and everyone's just like grabbing. It's called there's a psychological term. It's called what is it called?
Mob mentality.
It's like mob mentality, but it's like it's the idea of like if there's free candy on the porch, people are always gonna take the whole bucket if no one's looking. There's like a psychological term for like that greed that everyone has that they.
I can't think of it.
Yeah, but anyways, someone knows. Maybe I'll pop it right here. Yeah, so that's a B. I think it's right above the heat wave for survivability as a species, but I think it's below for personal survivability. So I think we'll put it here because heat wave seems more intense. Next is kaiju. So this
kaiju,
one we're
kill us
talking
all.
about.
We'll be done. Over. I think that the kaiju, if the kaiju is coming around, we're done. It's that's a large creature. If it's impervious to our weapons, like if you see, like you watch Godzilla and it's bouncing off its skin, it's like, Godzilla only leaves us alone when it decides to go back into the water every time. Unless we have an actual Godzilla that is Godzilla helping us out and fighting these other
balancing
kaiju.
Nature.
There's no way we're gonna like Pacific Rim our way out of it, because I don't think we'd be able to, get the resources together to be able to do that. I don't think that there'd be no, if it wants to walk and step on everything, it's over. So it's done.
Yeah, it's a tough one because to me it's like there's only one of it. So unlike a heat wave that hits the whole planet at once, like you could be in Japan and this thing's attacking, and you're in like California, like he'll probably be here in like a year or so. Like he's busy. So it's kind of like an apocalypse where it's like one queen on the board just taking out all the pawns,
And he might get stuck too, like you said, if he's in Japan, like he might just want to hang out on that island, and then that island is just where he lives.
Exactly.
I didn't think about it like that, but.
So I don't think it would really destroy our population, because I think we could breed faster than it could walk around killing everyone on the planet. I think it would kind of be like this, like like the opposite of a holiday. Like, oh, it's that time of year. He's coming to Japan. He likes it over here. He likes the sun, so he's gonna come and eat a bunch of us, and then he'll be back next year. It's almost like the Purge in a jumbo sense.
I agree then, because it would be like daily news, like, is the kaiju out today?
Yeah, we'd be. I think it would become a part of daily life. It'd be like, heart disease, just like a big killer that we just accept in our world.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think honestly, a kaiju might not be like S tier. I think it's less likely.
It's lower on that. Now that you bring that up, that's actually a great point of view to have on it, because like that, and that changed my thoughts on it, because I'm thinking like if it's just like right here with us, then we're screwed.
Yeah.
If there's multiple kaiju that come up in every single major city, like I think that it would wreck through everything, But if it's just like a single one, we're definitely more survivability.
I think even personally, it'd be pretty easy to survive it. Like I said, stay away from big cities, because he's gonna know that's where the food is.
Yeah.
If you're out in the wilderness, you just need to make a bunker that's like strong enough that when he steps on the soil, it doesn't collapse the bunker, and then he'll never find you. So I think the kaiju is definitely a big threat if it sees you, or if you're in a city. But it'll just change everyone's lives back to more of like a rural, like your neighbor's 100 miles away, because you don't want to be like making a lot of noise. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's like a C tier. You agree with that?
Agreed fully, yeah, because your that point of view that you mentioned was huge to shift it for me. Like almost D, like super survivable, because it's just like it's only gonna mess with you if it really wants to, and then if it is, completely animalistic, unless it's like stepping out of the ground and sharing philosophies about our world, I doubt it. Really, he's gonna think too hard about where he's gonna eat next. He's gonna go straight to where the food is, if that's its goal.
Yeah. Well, it's got to eat something.
Dig holes.
All right, so next is going to be famine. So famine is going to be pretty much food is disappearing, and there's no vegetation on the planet. It's pretty much just animals roaming. So essentially, this becomes a fight for food more than anything, and would likely result in many cases of cannibalism, because people will probably be able to find humans faster than they can find like whatever other animal can live without plants, which is probably none. Just
I
predators.
think that one's a huge not survivability. Like, I don't think we will be able to survive a famine, because long term, if the famine continues, like it just goes all around. You know, you're not gonna. It would end up being martial law, because people are gonna be like, well, the government's not gonna provide us food. We have to provide our own food, and if there's no more food on the shelves and nothing else is being produced, you know, we're over. I think that there would be the people like the preppers and things like that would have food for a limited amount of time, but at the same time, like, that stuff will run out. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know.
I think it's like actually mathematically impossible to survive, because when you look at like when a cow eats grass and then like a wolf eats the cow, there's a loss of calories each time something's consumed. So if we are reduced to only eating predators that are eating other animals because all the plants are gone, there's just like this loss of calories in the cycle of consuming, that eventually, like, if we eat all the hawks, we eat all the bears, we eat all the other humans, like, there's no way to make more humans or make more hawks at the rate that we would need to eat them for calories.
Yeah.
So I think that might be our first S tier extinction, because I think it would only be a matter of like a few years, as long as like people could like preserve the food that's on the planet. Do you think that's S or more of an A? Do you think, what would your approach
absolutely
be?
an S, because, you know, to go back on the fact where it's like, you know, yes, there's that loss of calories, but those predators and those things that, you know, do eat those other animals that eat the vegetation, if there's no vegetation, there's no animals for them to eat. So, you know, like, yes, like the one that's eating, you know, the rabbits and the other things that are smaller game, they might last a little bit longer, but in reality, like, you know, they're not gonna last very long, because there's nothing to eat. You know, those things that eat the vegetation will be first to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's over. And then there's also going to be a reason as to why everything's dying in the first place. So,
yeah, who knows? Like, that's like another layer to like that kind of apocalypse. There'd need to be a reason for why everything was dying, especially if it was just plants. It'd be like some kind of like, because the plant cell is different than the animal and mammal cells, so whatever difference there would probably be like some kind of virus that kills all plant cells. So I think that's an S tier. I don't know how I could try to survive that. You'd have to eat either like rocks of sorts, like things that aren't plants, get your vitamins and minerals, and you know, eat as many things you can come across until you die. And
I just thought of a caveat to that though too, because I think with our daily our technology now, right, and what we have, you know, with if you know, if this happened, you know, later on or whatever, when we have even better technology, like we already do have, you know, closed rooms that are growing food, you know, and isolated environments. So like, I think that if we had any sort of you know, warning, like years warning, I think that the infrastructure in theory could be put in place pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you just reminded me too that we are actually like 3D printing food these days of sorts.
Exactly.
So,
right?
you know,
like
maybe
literally we're growing meat.
Yeah, we can just like figure out, like, I don't know how much I don't know the process of that, but it does seem like if we had like a year's notice, we could make enough food for 10 years. You know, like, just because like rice and corn, you could store that for so long, you know.
Yeah,
so maybe
then I feel like at some point though as well, like, where's the seeds coming from? You know, if the famine is that, if it's that quick and stuff like that, like we don't have the seeds ready to go, and if the seeds themselves are a part of the problem,
so maybe this is more of an A tier, because we were looking at it from the approach that it was already like this outside, but we didn't think about the decline to that and the time that we'd have to, like, you know, collect seeds and like build underground like places for food. It's also kind of a underused movie idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I thought about that, because I'm like, you know what? Actually, in today's infrastructure, famine might not be horrible, because we have the infrastructure could, in theory, in a slight aspect, it is already put in place.
Yeah.
The infrastructure, it may already exist in some areas.
And there's already like, unlike the I don't know, like the kaiju or the aliens. Famine is already something our species has faced and currently is facing. So we already have the tactics to we have the knowledge of what happens when there's a famine. So we don't have the knowledge of what happens when a kaiju comes out of the ground. We don't know anything about that. So I think that this is below aliens, because I think it is more survivable than the alien invasion, in a sense of like preserving our species. But it does feel very fragile. And I feel like it's almost like Purge territory, where people will break into these like underground greenhouse like plant places, and they won't try and preserve it. They'll just take what they can out of hunger and leave, and like just destroy that. So it's a very fragile one. Definitely A tier, maybe more than I think aliens would still. The technology is what I'm thinking. They would find us. They'd have like infrared through fucking every ground and whatever. So
they'd use our Wi-Fi to look inside our houses.
Or telepathically, who knows? Yeah. So okay, we'll put that at A, famine. Next we have meteor. Okay, so this one,
multiple meteors or meteor?
I guess it depends on. To answer that question, we need to establish what the end result is. Is the end result that the planet blows up because then it's S tier? Maybe. There's always the Wall-E option. We have time to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of true for all of these. You could Wall-E your way out of it.
You could. I think a meteor though is devastating, and I think that would, there is consequences that lead to, shifts that could lead to other problems. Like the world could be put into an ice age because it's like covered up.
Yeah. You could also, if it's big enough, it could like hit Earth out of its rotation. I feel like,
it could. Yeah.
It could mess with where our planet is.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's S tier off the bat, just because it's like
it killed the dinosaurs. I don't think we could survive it.
The bunker idea. The bunker saves everything.
Yeah.
Apocalypse. But
they have to
bunker.
have that infrastructure. I just think that I don't think the infrastructure is just not there. Like, I have a brother-in-law that works at Lockheed Martin, and he has a pretty high clearance, right? And I asked him straight up one day, I'm like, hey, if something happened, like, would you be able to hit us up and tell us to get to where you're going? And he goes, no, I can only take me and my family to, the undisclosed location. Like,
so you just gotta follow him.
He was serious. Like, it's like, there's plans, but there's no, I can't.
Yeah.
There's no way that it's not open to the public. You know what I mean? It's just like you have to be within those key people.
Yeah. Well, I think for survivability, I don't think it would kill everyone at once. I don't think like if it hit California, I don't think people in New York would die, depending on how big it is. I'm gonna quickly look up how big the meteor was that hit the dinosaurs. I'm curious to hear. I bet the viewer is. Because that really kind of sways this. If we're saying it's that meteor, if it hit Earth again. Let's see. Stall for me.
There's been speculation that the meteor wasn't what killed the dinosaurs. There's been crazy theories lately.
It was 6 miles wide when it hit. So, it's crazy. And it hit the Earth.
It's actually not that big in comparison to the Earth, honestly, if you think about it.
This might be what you're talking about. The impact also triggered a mega earthquake that lasted weeks to months.
Yeah. Holy shit, it's like a bell, dude.
Oh my god. Did anyone survive? Birds are the only dinosaurs that survived the mass extinction. Frogs and salamanders,
They're just up in the air, watching everything shake. Like, that's crazy. And then they land, they're like, what the F is this?
Dude, I always thought about that, like, if you're skydiving and you just see an earthquake, like, what does that look like? Oh, you think, like, you're tripping or something? Like, the buildings are just like...
Well, they say that you don't know if an earthquake is happening if you're in your car either. You know, if you're driving
The
along
suspension?
the way, like you're not going to notice it unless the road is cracking, like because of the shocks. Like it's just going to feel like normal
Yeah.
motion.
Well, you've seen like bridges during earthquakes, right? That is
Crazy, dude.
insane. So yeah, I think a 6 mile wide meteor hitting the Earth, it wouldn't be a big enough meteor to like. I don't think even the blast radius of like the impact. You might feel the wind in New York. I don't know. Like it's going so fast. That's the thing. So
I think that it would definitely be an S tier for the long-term catastrophic events.
I disagree because I think that it's kind of like the famine where, like, if it hit in like California, if you're in Europe, you have maybe like a few weeks before like the fallout of like the impact will devastate your area, like where plants can't grow and all the animals die. Like I think that as long as you're not in this like highlighted blast radius and maybe like double the size of it outside of that, you could survive pretty long and maybe long enough for the species to like create these underground bunkers.
These bunkers.
Dude, that's what we need to invest in. Like every apocalypse ends with bunkers, so we're gonna do Dangerous Edge custom bunkers for every apocalypse.
Yeah, I've always wanted a downstairs area, man. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think
it's sick. That's where you
crucial.
like put your video games and everything, you know. But for the sake of tier list, I would say this is a high A. I don't think
absolutely.
If it hit like Europe, I would feel confident in surviving at least a few more years, and I don't think that the species would die. I think the bunker theory prevails. The bunker is S tier for survivability.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it might be lower than aliens, like, because I'm thinking if it hits in Europe and you have all this time, well, I guess the aliens too, they can't invade everywhere at once. Dude, there's so many ways to look at it.
You don't know.
They could, yeah.
It's very, it has to. With each one of these, it's always like, how big? What is the outcome?
Well, I'd say that the start of all of these is the meteor rule. So every invasion is 6 miles wide.
There you go.
The start. The purge is 6 miles wide.
Love it.
That's how they all start, and then it's like the fallout. Okay, moving on. We have the Ice Age.
Ice Age. This one I feel like is the most possible. People don't talk about it enough, but the reality is that if the poles shifted, we could jump into a new ice age, and in 4 years we're completely covered in ice.
Yeah, I mean, if our planet's off a bit,
it's a serious thing, and the world has shown that it's happened multiple times. So it's like, is it survivable? I think again, bunkers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I do think this one is. I think it's harder than the heat wave because we need warmth more than we need cold as a living creature, and I think it's really easy to freeze. If you're underground in our apocalypse bunker, you're safe from the heat, but you're not safe from the cold. I think cold can get pretty low. Like, if it's freezing these oceans, it's gonna go through the soil and just be cold wherever you are on the planet.
Yeah, right. And then also it takes a lot. I feel like it's also a lot harder to, like you said, you can get underground and be completely fine from the heat. It's hard to penetrate, but cold is that, where it's like it's frozen. You're fucking, you're over. It's penetrating the ground. It's going deep. It's a lot harder to get away from.
You know that scene from Pirates of the Caribbean when they're underwater with the boat and they're like in, like you could kind of do something like that for the sun to travel, but with the cold you can't like cover yourself from like the heat rays or like the cold. It's like it's a tough one. Like if I was in this situation, I had like a month to know this. Definitely building a bunker, insulating it as much as I can. Trying to make some kind of generator, maybe like it's like a treadmill I run on to generate like electricity, and then I use that to heat the place. I mean, fire is a really good resource.
But then at some if you can't gather the firewood anymore, I think that it's definitely
you gotta be prepared ahead of time.
I think it goes in the same tier as the heat wave though as well. Like I think that they're on the same level, in my opinion. I think that they're right up with the bees, just because it's, yeah, like if you have that ability, like you could technically even live in our house. Like my house, I live through winters, it's possible. Like this winter is supposed to be really, really bad. The last winter was supposed to be like the worst on record, and it was my first winter here, but I had a heater, luckily. I think that the infrastructure here now is almost like, areas that are used to it, I think will be completely fine. Like
well,
Canada,
what's that big lake, that big river next to you, the Columbus River?
It's a Columbia, yes. Columbia.
So imagine that being frozen to the core. Like that's another level of cold. I think like in the theory of this, if we're being like true to like the heat, like if you're outside for like an hour, you're frozen. So that means when you step outside, the blood in your body is like crystallizing slowly, like it's intense. I think you'd have to be underground or I think with modern technology though, we could build like a society of warmth. It might be, I think the only reason I think it's more difficult than the heat wave is because I think that we could use the heat wave to generate solar power and heat power. Yeah. With the cold, there's no way to use that,
Yeah, I don't think that the sun would be working anymore if it's that cold,
Yeah, it looks like there's like a giant moon, or I don't know what this is in the picture.
That's
star.
Probably the sun, and that's what the sun would look like.
Yeah, that's the sun. All right, moving on.
It's not heating the earth anymore. All right, what's up?
Next is zombies. We have a picture of Nazi zombies. So zombies is an interesting one. It's a lot like the famine, almost. It's a mix of the famine and the last one on our tier list, which is going to be contagion. But so zombies, I mean, we're going to go like basic rules. You get bit, you turn.
What type of zombies? We're talking about World War Z zombies or like Walking Dead zombies?
I think most likely is Walking Dead zombies. World War Z is actually more of like contagion zombies because they're like more like rabies. They're not like, I don't think they're actually like per se dead to begin with. If you watch the film, they're kind of like they get infected and they change. But yeah, I think zombies is an interesting one because it's like you want to be isolated, you want to be away from big crowds, which makes society harder, like the purge in a sense.
I think that there'd be dense areas where you'd have to stay away from. I think that, even though zombies, it's like, oh, we'd be screwed. It's like, I don't think, we were able to lock down airports pretty quickly. We have a pretty rigorous like airport system. Like even though COVID obviously spread like mad, I don't think that we're going to let somebody on an airplane that is, obviously bit, like in that case,
Well,
I think that'd be easier to.
It almost feels easier than the purge because it's like they're mindless,
Yeah, I would honestly put it at C tier with the kaiju just because I think that, like you said, if we have any sort of warning about this, I think that it'd be easy to steer clear from a zombie. And
I do think it would be the funnest too. I think it's a lot of people's like dark fantasy of like just mauling zombies. if any of these had to happen.
I think it is pretty interesting to think that like people would be excited about it. It's like, would I be excited about it? I don't know, because I think that bashing a skull in that used to be a human, it would still wreck society. I don't think society would be the same. I think it'd be people with PTSD basically everywhere that, and then at what point it's like martial law would have to be declared because it's like, okay, well, how you could basically just say, oh yeah, he was bit, and then murder that guy.
Yeah, it would get crazy.
Like it would get crazy. I think that society's gone.
I think
not out the window, but there'll be pockets of society that's just non-existent.
I think it's the apocalypse we'd be most knowledgeable, like as the everyday citizen. Like we don't know how to tackle famine or like aliens or like a cold wave as an individual, but we've all seen enough zombie movies to know the protocol of like, okay, what do I do? And I think the hardest part about it is the emotional ties to like family members who are bit and whatnot. I think this one
people don't cover enough. It's like you could World War Z also does it, but it's like like okay, we know these things want to bite us. Put protective gear on. You know what I mean?
They never do.
You
It's
know,
crazy.
they never do. Exactly, they never do. It's like, why? It's like you can literally just put on like 4 layers of clothing. It's still a regular human. The bite force is not a dog.
Yeah.
You know? So you're talking about regular amounts of, you know, honestly, 3 or 4 layers of Kevlar, like a layer or 2 of Kevlar, and you should be okay in theory, you know?
I think the hardest one about this is that eradicating it would be. I mean, all of these are really are per se impossible to eradicate.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe. But I think zombies would be the easiest one to tackle because it could be eradicated.
Yeah.
And you know, their whole thing is numbers and spreading through infection. I think a lot of that is easily resolved through like, you know, we have a lot more leeway. So I think it is a low tier apocalypse.
Agreed.
But yeah, it does come down to how prepared you are and how good you are at, you know, surviving. So moving on, we have mass flood. So
Mass flood. Oh,
now for this one,
really intense.
this one I imagine it being like the movie Waterworld, where maybe for like a few years there's no land on Earth. It's like the planet has been covered in water. The ice caps melted. We're floating, you know.
Yeah.
And so for that, you know, I think it off the top of my head it sounds very survivable because you could still fish. You have a lot of boats are already out there, but it's the initial tidal wave would be the hardest part because wherever your boat is, it's moving miles inland, crashing into skyscrapers.
If you don't have a boat nearby, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, anybody inland without a significant flotation device, because you're talking, you know, what would lead to that, you know, would be earthquakes that pull the pieces of Earth down, right? That would actually be what would happen in theory, right?
Or the meteor hits the water, you know?
Exactly,
and then
right?
this ripple wave. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think the bunker won't save you on this one.
Yeah, bunker one would not save you.
You would have to reverse fish, where you're fishing from under with like a helium balloon or air balloon, and then you pull.
Yeah.
The opposite.
Love it. Yeah, I think this one actually, it might be our first, you know, S tier that we both kind of like. I don't think that if your initial wave happens and you're in it, you know, you're done. You're swept away. It's over.
Absolutely disagree.
You know.
I absolutely disagree because
well, so,
we have hot air balloons.
I think of like tsunami.
Well, think about air travel. You just air travel the wave, and then you have like a boat, you know, and
tsunamis freaking just like demolish entire buildings and towns. So that's the way I think of it. Like if it's, you know, a rapid flooding like that, like if a tsunami is coming through, that's a 40-foot wave, and it comes through my town, and I'm not, you know, even if you're on a boat, you're getting ripped up.
Yeah, you got to get airborne first, and then
you've got to get airborne. Like,
you got to get airborne, and then I would say you either stay airborne until you see someone else with a boat, or somehow you have a boat that is lifted by the plane, and then when the plane lands, it just drops the boat in the water. Like, yeah, it's really preparation. Like, if the meteor hit the ocean, and you had like a 3 days warning about a tidal wave about to sweep over, yeah, I would head to the airport and I would do what I had to get like a seat on some kind of plane. And, you know, even after the tidal wave hits, a lot of what humans have made will float. So it won't really be just water. I think that there'll be a lot of floating like things that you could spot from the air and come down on and kind of use to build a raft. I think it's pretty survivable if you had the means to like do this plan. If you couldn't accomplish this plan, then it's an S tier wipeout for you. But as a species, I think we could survive this pretty certainly.
Yeah, again, it goes back to like I think there might be pockets that, you know, have more time. You know, I think that there'd be, you know, survivability as far as the species and stuff. I think we'd be, you know, it's possible. We, you know, the Bible apparently did it already. So, but that was one vote, and I don't know.
Where do you think it goes? Because I don't think it's S tier. I'm gonna say that.
I still think it's I guess it has to be up there with. I would agree with B for sure. You know, A's are very, you know, just demolish things.
I think right here under the cold and the heat, because if
Yeah.
you survive the initial wave, then you're just like a sailor for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
it's not that bad.
yeah, it's not horrible.
But it would be intense. All right, so we're on to our last two.
But also, though, with caveat to that, though, is there fresh water? You know what I mean? Like, we can only last 3 days without fresh water. If it's all salt water,
You could make fresh water from salt water.
yeah,
You like
to diffuse like that, like that's crazy hard.
You
Like, you have to have the
you use the evaporation. Didn't you ever
Yeah.
see that Bear Grylls where he turned his pee into water?
Yeah, true.
You know, there's a way to
Yeah.
like siphon. Essentially, you're doing what clouds do. You're like pulling the fresh water out. So I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good at B right there at the lower end of the apocalypses. So moving on, we have the nuke.
The nuke. I think if we're talking about a nuke in this day and age, you know, one nuke leads to multiple nukes. I don't think one nuke.
Yeah,
is
mad.
enough. And I think that I wish that the humans and, you know, governments decided that nukes just, you know, should not even exist. Period. In general, you know, like every time we had a nuke, just actually, you know, kill the guys that did it, and then, you know, never bring a nuke into existence would be the better way to do it. But obviously, that's not our society.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're already at the point where they exist. Oppenheimer just came out too, so I think this is one of those things that everyone's like more educated on now, I guess, or like it's just back in the public sphere of knowledge and topicalness. But yeah,
nuclear war is definitely an S tier, because that one it's a culmination of everything. And I think that if you're, you know, even outside of blast zones and areas, there's
radiation,
you know,
fallout.
there's radiation that, you know, destroys that area for, you know, significant, like throughout our lifetime. You know, I mean, it's never going to be our lifetime that we see Chernobyl able to be livable.
I actually heard recently that they found a species of fungus or mushroom growing in the radiation. Like it's life has adapted there, and I don't know if it uses the radiation and like absorbs it to thrive, or it just is impervious to it. But life finds a way sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that MAD, mutually assured destruction with nukes, would be. It would be very hard to figure out how to live, because like you could bunker it up, and then you'd have to be under there for a very long time. But when you come up, like you see an apple, and that apple is like toxic. Like you would poison yourself just looking for food. There's just, I think that is an S tier. If a nuke hit every continent, it would destroy that area that it hit at, and then it would just poison the rest of the land and everywhere for generations. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's S tier. I can't think of a way around it. It's not like a slow burn. It's literally like,
because I don't think that it's gonna be, you know, because, you know, speaking, you know, with what's happening now, it's like, you know, Russia has it, we have it, China has it. Like, these are big powers that has it. If one of them does it, the other one's gonna say F you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not gonna be like back in the day when we dropped one and it was like, okay, well, you know, it's almost, you know, it sucks to say, but, you know, it happened, we did it, and then I feel like there was probably a time when both sides were just like, that was horrible, we should never do it again. You know?
Yeah.
And I wish that it flowed through time in a different manner versus how America did it, where it's like, oh, well, now we're going to be the only ones with it. It's like, no, it should have been, everybody should never use that.
Yeah, it was maybe one day we'll see a world where they're all launched into space and we're just done with them. We're out. I don't know if you can disassemble a nuke at this point. The other thing too is if you nuke a nuke, it's a mega nuke, you know?
Yeah.
If you nuke a facility that has a nuke, you just double nuke that whole continent, you know? Which is probably, I don't know how to say, on par with the meteor. I think the meteor is a bigger explosion, but the nuke radiation, you know, I don't know about meteor radiation. I don't know if that's a thing. You throw a rock at a planet or anything. Yeah, so that I think this is S tier. I would say we have an S in the form of a nuke. I'm gonna crawl it up. It's gonna be a B for a second, and now boom, we have our S. Okay, and so now we have our final apocalypse scenario, which is Contagion, and this would be the form of like the most relatable would probably be the Black Plague, something that just took out like a third of Europe's population, and I'd say for this scenario you have like COVID. You knew about it before you got it. It was like a thing that was mass spreading. You're not really sure like. There's definitely like a lot of confusion about what it is, the symptoms, how long it lasts, does it really go away, and it's something that's constantly mutating. So with all that said, like how would you do COVID differently than you did already if it was a sure death that you got if you got it,
Yeah, that one's hard because, COVID, obviously we lived through a pandemic, but looking back on it, it wasn't, horrible where it's like, 100% death rate, like the Black Plague and things like that. I think the infrastructure is there and I think we handled the pandemic very well, even though, it's like we did the best we could with what we had, but it also showed that, hey, we were able to come together as a society, create the vaccines and the things that help us, outlive it. And I think something like the Contagion, it's like, we'd be able to find out how it spreads very effectively. Unless it's, so contagious. I think that's something that is viral, obviously, actually COVID was viral, so that wouldn't make sense. But like bacterial, something that is bacteria based is a contagion as well that could potentially really screw with us because it would have longer periods and stuff.
I think the biggest damning part of it would be if it was airborne. If just talking in a room with someone, you could catch this deadly disease that was certain death. Just thinking about it, I think it's definitely above the Purge. That's an absolute for me.
I think it almost goes up into A because those are, if you're talking about like an instant death kind of thing, it's like if you get it, it's like very not survivable. Like that's definitely up with the A's. Like I don't think it's an S because of the, where our society is today, but
because you could isolate yourself. When we're talking about your own survival, I think it's pretty easy to survive this in the sense of just isolating yourself, and then you're not exposed to it, and you can grow your own crops still. You still have all these resources and whatnot. So it's just like it'll shake up the pot of society. I don't think that it would ever be widespread enough to kill everyone on the planet. I think everyone would just live really far away from it with their families. It's it's way better than the zombie apocalypse. Way more effective for sure. It's like invisible zombies. It's way stronger than the Purge, even though it's mindless because it forces separation from society. I think that it would be less deadly than the tidal wave and the heat wave because you can. It's like these three affect everybody all at once, and the Contagion only affects people around it. So I think. How do you feel about right here in B?
I like that. I agree with that because it's it's very
It'll change our way of life.
The infrastructure we have would be able to really figure out what the fuck is going on. It's gonna be like, okay, this is happening. This is where it's at. It'd be kind of the same kind of idea as what happened with COVID. We did it. We already did it.
We already did it. Yeah, we know we can survive. It's just isolation, really. And you know what saves us? I know you know what saves us.
Yeah.
A bunker.
A bunker, yeah.
All right, well, there we have it. Josh, take it away.
All right, so thank you guys for joining us. If you guys think that something is not in the correct spot for this specific list, let us know in the comments. Tell us where you would put these items. If you have other apocalypses that you want to talk through in the comments, let us know. We'll chime in and let you know our thoughts and where we might put them on the list. These were just some apocalypses that we just came up right on the spot. So, I'm sure a extensive list will happen within the comments. So please like and subscribe, obviously, and hope you enjoyed our chat and chatting with us today. I am Joshua Meyerholtz, and I'm with my buddy Ryan Myers. You're watching Danger's Edge. We're trying a little bit long form podcast style stuff just to get the conversation going, create content to just throw out to the world. We would love your input on how we did. So yeah, like, subscribe, let us know what your thoughts are.
Peace. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween 2023.
And cut.